Powers that be are very clever about distracting us from the fundamental causes of what we experience as economic hardship in the world. One of these powers that be, Winston Churchill, occasionally uttered a statement that provided insight into the workings of this power structure. For example, in his Romanes lecture at Oxford University in 1930, Churchill pointed to one such flagrant imbalance in the economy, which he actually designated not as an economic problem of his time, but as the economic problem of his time, when he said, and I quote, "The classical doctrines of economics clearly do not correspond to what is going on now. The root problem of modern economics is the strange discordance between the consuming and producing powers. Who would have thought that it would be easier to produce by toil and skill all the most necessary or desirable commodities than it is to find consumers for them? Have all our triumphs of research and organization bequeathed us only a new punishment, the curse of plenty? Are we really to believe that no better adjustment can be made between supply and demand? Yet the fact remains that every attempt has so far failed." End of quote. Having been a key participant in the conduct of 2 world wars, which involved immense expenditure of physical assets, Churchill had a particularly lucid appreciation of the producing power of modern economies. Churchill's focus on the disparity between producing and consuming capacities almost certainly derived from the attention that, from the end of World War I, was being directed to this phenomenon by mechanical engineer C.H. Douglas and his followers in what came to be known as the social credit movement. More or less accidentally, Douglas had discovered through cost accountancy analysis that under existing practices, price generation is out of sync with distribution of the means of price liquidation. He subsequently demonstrated how this phenomenon causes gross distortions in the economy as attempts are made to contend with the inherent flaw in the costing system. One of the methods, which is inherently self-defeating, is filling the deficiency by means of ever larger infusions of financial debt, which explains why today world debt is at a level unprecedented and approaches $250 trillion. Churchill was the beneficiary of 13 years of effort on the part of this group to draw attention to the grand disparity between producing and consuming capacities in the economy and the derivative problems resulting therefrom. Thus we see that while production methods go through revolution after revolution, the basic economic position of the ordinary citizen barely changes decade after decade. It is simply not following the increase in productive capacity of the economy. Indeed, in some periods, the economic fortunes of the general population actually deteriorate. This is a very strange anomaly, and Churchill did us a great favor in drawing attention to it. But, as I said, few have followed in his footsteps to draw our attention to it since. Now we are in the robotics age, a time when we have mechanical slaves, in whatever number we desire to have them. This promises to be the greatest revolution in productive capacity in human history. And yet, what are our prospects? We are told that our economic position becomes ever more precarious because the robots are displacing human participation in the economy. What an incredible irony. We can thus anticipate that productive capacity is going to grow at an exponentially increasing rate. We can also anticipate that the powers that be will endeavor to blind the population to this phenomenon and thereby keep them in a continuing state of dependency and insecurity. The purpose of this is obvious. It is to provide a means of intimidating the population and thereby maintaining control over them. And this is accomplished through the financial necessity that falls upon every person in a money economy. We fail to appreciate our position of ever-increasing potential for economic security and indeed leisure because we have been indoctrinated with principles of Puritanism deriving from the notion that mankind lies under a curse requiring him to earn his daily bread. And no matter how the economy evolves, the financial powers persist in imposing this concept. It involves a grotesque judgmentalism of human nature that is not only obsolete, but is in total contravention of the principles that we should have inherited through Christianity. The principal prayer of Christianity, as given to us by Jesus, includes the phrase, "Give us this day our daily bread." Not, "Let us earn this day our daily bread," but "Give us this day." And this is consistent with what Jesus said elsewhere when he said, "Behold the fowls of the air. They toil not, neither do they sow, yet their heavenly Father cares for them. Would he not do as much for you?" This is a total rejection of the puritanical viewpoint that holds us in thrall to compulsive employment and judgment of our neighbors. Despite Christ's promises and admonitions, you do not hear this message from the pulpits of Christian churches. It's a very strange phenomenon and can only be explained because we have not released our minds from the grip of that earlier principle of the curse upon mankind deriving from his expulsion from the Garden of Eden. Christ provided wine at the marriage feast in Cana. He distributed freely bread and fishes to his hungry followers on the hillsides. There was no precondition on his part that anyone had to do anything in order to participate in the benefits of this abundance. If we had a reorientation of our thinking, as Christ said we should, renewing our minds, and recognized that we are living in a time of abundance in which all people should increasingly be enabled to participate, then we could escape from this dreadful prison of self-righteousness and judgmentalism that we have inherited from Puritanism. It is astonishing that 2,000 years after Christ gave us the command to release our minds, we have made so little progress in that direction. The world seems to be in the grip of some evil spell that prevents people from perceiving reality. And the reality is that the production spewing from automated and increasingly robotic production systems makes all considerations of austerity and imposed hardship obsolete and artificial. So let us heed the words of Winston Churchill and redirect our attention to the strange discordance he pointed out between producing and consuming capacities which discordance has grown apace since he initially referenced it. If we solve this discordance using our intelligence, then derivative problems such as providing employment to distribute incomes and international trade competition leading to trade wars and hot wars and perpetual inflation would fade away like morning mist.